Welcome back to Proper Madness. I am happy to have you back if you're a returning listener. If you're a new listener, my name is Sabby, and I have a very unique perspective on mental health. I believe wholeheartedly that we can turn anything that we have been through and alchemize it into bettering ourselves mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. It helps you feel less alone, to know and understand that the way out is always through the eye of the storm. Grab a cup of tea. If you're not a tea drinker, grab your coffee, and let's sit down and tune into ourselves so that we can learn to connect to other people. We never know the weight of our words and how they might help someone.
My name is Nino, or Esteban Niño Palacio, but everyone calls me Nino. I work as a behavioral coach and I host retreats. I also am a breathwork and meditation guide, poet, artist, writer, content creator. I'm a mystic at heart, very influenced by a lot of Zen teachings. Grew up a Catholic. A lot of what I am trying to preach is helping people recognize that you are fundamentally living in a limited experience through which, as an infinite being, you live in a paradox wherein the universe is constantly unfolding through paradoxical principles, which mean that you can't know it. That's part of a paradox, is the never-ending snake, the Ouroboros, and you are a manifestation of paradox. So a lot of what I try to help people navigate is living in the tension, in the space between certainty and knowing. Can you be completely aware of your ignorance while being surrendered to the present moment? In the awareness of presence, you have the most control by surrendering control. It's like there are, there are tenets of paradox that you can align yourself with. So I try to teach people that through psychology, mindfulness, and spiritual practices and philosophy. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot.
Multifaceted being.
So, yeah, multidimensional.
Yeah, I like that, multidimensional. No, I love that. I think since the last time we talked, so much has changed, right? I want to know more about, whatever you're comfortable like sharing, like how you got into embracing that liminal space that you just talked about, right? Like helping people through that. Yeah.
Well, in all fairness, look, like, a lot of people ask, like, how did you get into this work?
Yeah.
There's always like a pragmatic answer, there's a spiritual answer, there's a psychological answer. It just depends what lens you take. When I look at it psychologically, I'm like, well, I was always extremely curious. I didn't know I was autistic until later in life, but as a result of that, combined with early childhood trauma, I developed metacognition very early, thinking about thoughts. When you think about thoughts a lot, you also start seeing the patterns of thought within yourself. You start noticing patterns of thought in other people and how it influences their behavior. I got it super into psychology by 16. I was studying AP psychology in high school, and I was just it was so logical to me. It was very obvious to me.
Yeah.
Like, it didn't feel like I had to learn something new. It was like I was remembering something I already knew. Which I think is a good sign that something is for you. When it feels like you're remembering something, I think typically that's a sign, like, oh my God, you're on the path. And then naturally, a few life stressors, having my best friend have a psychotic break at 18 years old inspired me to go, like, I think I really want to take psychology seriously. And then his passing at 21 made me go, like, question the psychological model, because he was seeing psychiatrists and he was medicated on antipsychotics, and I just saw how those medications destroyed his mind. And while I know that everyone is well intentioned in the process, I just saw a system that was fundamentally inhuman and didn't understand the human condition well. Where I was finding understanding of the human condition was through spiritual mystics. They seem to understand the condition of suffering and existence far better than a lot of the traditional psychotherapeutic models, which ironically, actually, when you get to the core of a lot of the people who developed the original theories in psychology, they were all very religious in thought, mystic oriented. It's just that calcified version of their theories and of their teachings that they first espouse is what we know as modern psychology, which takes away all of the stuff that can't be empirically driven, which I
Yeah.
completely understand. That's, science has its role, but it dehumanized, it demystified the experience of what we're experiencing, which is
Yeah.
inherently, mystical insofar as it's wiggly. It's not concrete. It is very literally consciousness manifested through consciousness, caught in the illusion of self. And so, anyways, all that to say, like, I fell into this because of certain decisions or to study psychology, certain recognitions that psychology wasn't the end all answer, but seeing like I could probably be a really good bridge to help people apply psychological principles within a broader philosophical framework that adequately helps them in this endeavor of being human.
I love that. That was a good explanation. I liked it. Um,
Thanks.
yeah, it's funny you say that. I'm not surprised though. I also found out I struggled with autism later in life too, with the trauma. And yeah, I was like, oh, that tracks. That makes sense, you know. Needed my walls to be blacked so I can just relax. No, but there is that thinking about thoughts and seeing the patterns, which is such a gift. But like you said, sometimes it just allows you to it takes you out of the experience that we're in, right? And out of your body and out of connection and out of presence and allowing yourself to kind of like your back, literally like your background, allowing yourself to kind of move, right?
Mm.
And be a little bit more in flow. So I resonate with that a lot. I love that. I love that so much.
There's a lot of safety in the intellectual analysis of
Yeah.
the human experience, which is what I found.
Mm-hmm.
And mind you, the world rewards it, right? If I can intellectually give everybody the explanation as to how the mother wound shows up in relational dynamics, everyone can safely assume, oh, he must be healed because
Mm,
look at how well he can speak about it. But in a way, that same intellectual lens is the very barrier from jumping into a relationship with the willingness to get hurt, with the
yeah.
willingness to admit that like we're all a little wounded out here. And I really think that's a malady of modernity, is how often the intellectual analysis of life keeps us from really living.
Yeah. I resonate with that. Like in my brain, I was like, man, I need that help because I still do it. I still definitely love to intellectualize out of comfort and control. Control's the big one. That's my biggest thing lately. Um, but in that control, you're taking yourself out of experiencing like, kind of like the gray, right? So, yeah.
That's why psychedelics,
Mhm.
psychedelics played a huge role in the development of what I do in coaching, in the
Yeah.
retreat spaces, and in wellness, because I recognize that within myself, had it not been for psychedelic experiences that are so powerful that the logical mind simply cannot continue to exist in them. It's just too much. You cannot
Yeah.
you cannot rationalize a heroic 14-gram dose of psilocybin. You cannot.
Absolutely not. Could you
Um,
imagine?
right. No, I
No.
did it.
Oh, dear.
Yeah. So, and all that to say, when you have an experience like that, you're forced to surrender and you come out of it this weirdly humbling and yet confident awareness of like, oh, okay, so all that intellectual thing I kept saying about how your mind can't take you to the next level, it literally can't, because a part of me had to completely die, renounce itself from the space for the experience to move through this vehicle, this vessel. And I'm a big proponent of it. I think a lot of intellectual people will find themselves stuck in just constant self-perpetuating loops of analysis until they have a very humbling, ego disillusioning experience like psychedelics can provide. But,
Hmm.
on the flip side, there are people whom they simply haven't been humbled by life, and even when they're humbled by a psychedelic in a safe space, they come right out of it and go, well, I've experienced that, so now that means I'm better, or I am great. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, geez, like,
No.
you know,
Oh, gosh.
there's no one size fits all for the domain of growth and expansion,
Mhm.
growth, whatever. But I found it quite useful for me, because for me it was like, whoa, holy shit.
No, I had the same, exact same. Well, I started doing it with a therapist who specialized in PTSD because there were points where I was like, I can't keep doing the same thought loops, the same patterns, the same decision making. So we started with like micro doses, and there was a time where like I did do a big dose up in Joshua Tree, of course, and a sound bath. It was quite the experience. And I remember just watching these birds on a power line and watching the birds show me in real time parts of myself that I was avoiding. And then after that, that was it. Then everything changed. Like, and we'll get into this too, I'm sure. My platform changed, who I was changed, my relationships changed. I very quickly started realizing, like, hang on, the people I'm surrounding myself with are quite literally dictating the same patterns and loops that I'm in, right? Because we are what we experience. So it was I get that. It was life-changing too. And yeah.
I love that, when you're you can safely tell me, yeah, I was on mushrooms in Joshua Tree and I looked at the birds on the power line and they showed me parts of myself. And it's like, for me, I'm like, yeah, that makes absolute sense.
Right? Yeah.
Because it's, it's like, until you've had a mind-bending psychedelic experience where you might say like, yeah, I took one look at the tapestry in my room of the Virgin Mary and I immediately knew that the way that I had been treating women had been a source of external validation for my mother wound. It's like, it all makes sense if you had
Oh
the
yeah.
experience, but until you
Yes.
had the experience, it sounds a little bit like gabagool. A little bit, just
Yeah.
doesn't make. And this is the paradox, right? It cannot
Hmm.
make sense because sense is logic and reason oriented. A psychedelic experience is beyond reason, but it doesn't mean that it's not cohesive, that it can't be integrated. It can, just
Yeah.
in a new way of knowing. It expands the domain of mind past logic and reason, which is,
Mm.
quite frankly, what this world really needs.
How would you say your form of integration looks or looked like or ongoing?
Mm. I mean, like, genuinely, I don't use many psychedelics at this current stage, but when I did, let's say, a lot of reflecting, journaling, and dream analysis. What I found is that because a lot of psychedelic experiences are beyond the logical mind's ability to grasp, my mind tends to use dreams as a buffer space for the information to be processed through narratives, storylines, symbols. So for weeks and months, usually after a big psychedelic journey, I'll find that my dreams are deeper, they're potent.
Mm.
And so I reflect and journal on them. And I also use reflective meditation exercises wherein I essentially send my consciousness to different points in time that were brought up to me in the psychedelic experience.
Mm.
In a psychedelic journey, I might be reminded of a painful breakup with someone I haven't thought about for 6 years. So I'll then do a meditation and do my best through, maybe looking at photos, like priming my mind initially, and then I'll meditate to try to send my consciousness into that dimensional plane using imagination, visualization, embodiment. Like it's not woo-woo, it's just like, just use your imagination
Yeah.
to remember, what was it like? Who was I in that moment? And then, boom, some part of me that perhaps lay dormant before through some kind of repression, block, something, is now able to be seen from this point of compassion and empathy. And I go, oh my God, I didn't see how much pain he was in. Oh, that's why I broke up with her, because I didn't feel like I deserved someone who was treating me well. Oh, and then I feel. And then I feel the emotions, which is just energy in motion that's become stagnant. I feel it, I process, I cry, and then it's like, oh, that's it. Okay, that was like, it's like, for me, integration has been fundamentally open my body, mind, soul to different spaces within my consciousness, self, shadow, that haven't been fully processed, aka integrated, felt,
Mm-hmm.
and then feel them. I'm a big feeler. I'm a projector, and part of my human design is like I'm supposed to feel my way through the world. It's true.
Yeah.
I'm like, my job is to feel as much as I possibly can about the experiences I've had. So a lot of it's like, I would say past life regressions, but it's
Yeah.
my own life regression,
No,
past regression.
that tracks. I did that very recently with all the past little selves within me. Where I was feeling like I was still kind of craving a teeny tiny bit of validation from the world. And so I went, let's come back into the body. And dance has been big for me with that. And so in just doing that somatic movement and getting out of my head and into my body, I also did the same thing just organically. I just meditated and I went, all right, all the little sabbies, let us meet together. But it was so beautiful because I think like to meet those different parts of yourself and to just honor that and come into yourself, kind of how you're saying, like I saw, goth sabby, we saw trouble, all the different parts. And to meet it with love and go, oh, got it. I've been I've been pushing this part of me away, therefore sometimes a certain like relationships or experiences I'm attracting is mirroring this, right? And so I love what you're saying. I do the same thing, but by just default, because I am in the witchy woo woo world. But I
It's all the
resonate with that.
same. The
Hmm.
witchy, the woo-woo, the
Yeah.
psychological, the spiritual. When people, I have no doubt, Jesus, Krishna, Buddha, they'd been in a room, they'd all be looking at each other like they know, like, yeah, real, recognize as real. Like we're not. They don't. I doubt they would be sit around arguing. Like that's what the followers do. And and I
Yeah.
can't stress it enough. Like Christ wasn't a Christian.
Oh
Buddha wasn't a
gosh, you're gonna get
Buddhist.
me started on that. I was just talking about that 2 days ago.
Yeah, it's potent because
Hmm.
what it's echoing is like we're not being asked here to follow anything.
No.
People think it's Luciferian. This is something I've heard. Luciferian to ask people to follow themselves, and I go, that's precisely because if you're worshiping a false self,
Hmm.
when you truly recognize yourself to be nothing, like this is a performance that arises naturally in being a human.
Yeah.
I think myself to be Esteban, Niño Palacio, I think myself to be many things.
Hmm.
When I stop thinking and I realize my thoughts are just objects of the mind and I find myself in stillness, I notice that really there's nothing there.
Hmm.
There's just awareness. Oh, and that awareness, when you really feel into it, when you sit with it long enough, you realize it's the source. It's God itself manifested through
Yeah.
you. When you know that self within yourself, that everyone can build a relationship with, you can build it through Christ. You can build it
Hmm.
through Krishna. You can build it through practices. There's many ways to do it. There's many paths.
Hmm.
But when you build that internal relationship to the divine in surrendering yourself to something greater, you just know like, oh, that's what I'm being asked to do. I'm not being asked to like, it's great if a book helps you. It's great if
Yeah.
the lectures do and the scripture does, but it's about expanding my own ability to love, to
Mm.
really love. I like to tell people, love is permission. I look around the world and I see a bunch of children, and I mean that with love, not in a condescending way. I'm a child too, child of God, child of humanity. And I see a bunch of children waiting for permission.
Mm.
God, can I get permission to go after what I want? Can I get permission to admit what I really love? Can I get permission to be who I really am? And in the perfect world where every human was provided perfect unconditional love by their parents, no one would be asking for permission. They'd already be giving it to themselves.
Yeah.
But I see that God's love is a manifestation of the highest permission, because when you recognize God as the all-loving, pervasive, creative force that flows infinitely through everyone, and you sit with that yourself, you realize, oh my God, that's all I've been waiting for. I've been waiting for myself, my real self, to give me permission to go write that book. Go
Mm.
share your voice online. Go tell that person you like them. Not because you're supposed to get what you want.
Mm.
Often you're not, but it's just because every desire, everything, there's something in there to help your soul develop, to help you mature a little bit more. In yoga, they refer to it as karmic ties, and there's many verbiages that we could throw at this, but I see a bunch of children waiting for permission to be fully with themselves, to be with God. And part of what returns us to God, paradoxically, is giving us full permission, ourselves full permission to
Mm.
play in the experience of being human, to be in the world but not of it, to be fully present to the suffering, to the pain, to the joy, to the happiness, and yet paradoxically knowing that all of it will pass. None of it defines us.
Yeah.
This is the crux. That's the thread that we're trying to walk on.
What do you feel like? Okay. And I'm sure you have like clients that have dealt with this or people that you work with and that you coach. There's that little moment in between like giving yourself permission and taking action. What do you feel like can help someone do that? Does that make sense?
I'll reiterate it, and you tell me
Yeah.
if I'm understanding. when someone has an idea or a desire regarding themselves,
Mm-hmm.
and then they go, okay, I'm trying to give myself permission, but then action maybe doesn't
Correct.
happen next, or like,
Yeah, yeah.
um,
How do you
how
break
can
through
we
that?
you practice? This is not even a sexy answer. I'm going to tell everyone the truth right now. This is the big truth around growth development. Consistency and growth require patience.
Mm.
Patience requires trust and faith. Trust and faith also require devotion. It's like they all kind of loop into each other. And here's like a simple basic thing. Most people I find who are waiting for permission, let's say, even they say they give themselves permission, they notice the desire, but they're just jumping. They're also often people who tend to have patterns of behavior in their life of asking everybody else for their opinion before they do anything. They tend to be individuals who, like, even in making a simple decision, like they like a shirt, and they'll go, what do you think? They text their partner, and it's like, oh my goodness, you're eroding your own self-trust. Like, they might not think it's consequential. What? It's just, I just like to get my friend's advice. I just like to ask. Sure. But your awareness that witnesses everything, what it sees is that there's an individual who cannot trust their own desires. Because every time they have even a desire for something small, as a food, self-pleasure, even consumption, they externalize that decision to someone else, to the validation of their friends, to the validation of their community. And so I think that by the time there comes a big moment, like, oh my God, I realize I'm supposed to change careers. Good luck. You haven't even practiced being able to decide where you want to eat without asking for your partner's advice. You think you're going to be able to make the decision as to switching careers? So I say, come back to the small moments. Every human is blessed with thousands of decisions and choices a day. Those decisions and choices, while seemingly inconsequential, are very powerful opportunities for growth. Every moment that you choose to, I'm just going to do the thing because I said it. I'm going to journal right now. You don't go on your phone. You journal. That little thing that maybe feels like, but how is that going to help me? That is helping you. It's telling yourself, I trust myself to do what I say I'm going to do right when I have the desire to do it. And it's not sexy because it means you got to do it a lot. You got to do it often. You have to also notice the amount of choices you have in a day. So it becomes a huge process. Like, first, I have to become mindful enough to notice the choices. Then I have to start considering what my values are and seeing what types of choices align with those values. And then I have to start putting it into practice, maybe setting up a structure, a system, reminders, maybe even a coach or an accountability partner.
Yeah.
And then I have to do it long enough that one day when a big decision comes around, the distance just dissolves between the desire around what you know you want to do and doing it.
I love that. That's perfect. That's exactly what I asked. So thank you.
You're welcome. I wish there was like a number one secret.
No, I don't think there is. I think it's like you said at the beginning, right? There's no actual concrete answer to everything and anything. It just depends on the situation and who you are. Yeah.
Well, I'm curious, when you look at the world, like, how do you diagnose, what do you think is actually most people's real block between themselves and the life that they desire?
Oh, thank you for asking that. Let's see. I would say it is always just themselves, right? Themselves, but also looking to outside sources to tell them what they should do and how they should live. And kind of like outsourcing their voice, right? Like outsourcing their truth, outsourcing their creativity. That's the thing I see the most is creativity for me is just how we show up. Like it's not always art, but like you are the art. Your life is your art. That's who you are. So if you're outsourcing your thoughts, your beliefs, your systems to everyone and anyone else, then you become less you, you know? Is what I've been seeing more and more of. And I know because I lived that life for a very long time, but that's what I see a lot of.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
Hmm.
the outsourcing. Again, it's hard, right? Because to play devil's advocate, I know a lot of people, oh, what? So I'm not supposed to listen to anyone else, so I'm just supposed to only listen to
Yeah.
myself. It's like, look, it's balance, man. Like, Yeah, learn from people you're inspired by. Take everything with a grain of salt. You got to have your own experiences. What works for one person might not work for you because you have different personalities, energy types, and intelligence even.
Yeah.
Like you also might have a different natural expression than someone else. You know, a lot of people online are like, someone will be like, "All right, oh, but do I have to show up online like you do?" I'm like, why would you show up like I do? Are you me?
Yeah.
Like that's stupid.
Yeah.
If you're me, if you're exactly like me, then yeah, you'll probably naturally want to monologue and do characters and voices because
Yeah.
I naturally do that. That's very fun for me. I love doing it. If for you it's more natural to be analytical and share and educate with a whiteboard, then fucking do that. But everyone is, again, they're so busy outsourcing their power, their direction to other people because in a way we've been instructed by the very moral system and fabric of our society that the individual must call its own power for the herd,
Yeah.
which is what Friedrich Nietzsche talked about in the slave morality, a system which perpetuated by false Judeo-Christian teachings where we're essentially all told like praise the martyr, be the martyr, and make yourself small and sacrifice yourself for the herd, but that actually doesn't help anyone. Like the most inspiring thing is people who are empowered in themselves and who inspire us to be powerful.
Yeah.
It's a myth that the powerful people use, which is hilarious, right? Powerful, evil people sell you the myth that power is bad because they are bad. They are bad, so they don't want you to get power. So they tell you, don't be powerful. No, it's so bad, so bad. Power is not good. So then we all become indoctrinated by these beliefs. We disempower ourselves, shrink our voice so that they can maintain the order over you. The truth is, people, it is true. Yeah, sure. Absolute power corrupts, absolutely. Yeah, sure. And if you're a genuinely heart-centered person, or one step back, whoever you are is magnified through power.
Yeah.
That's the truth. If you're a piece of shit, you get power, you will become more of a piece of shit because you have more of the power to do it. If you're a heart-centered human, man, you get power, you're going to be even more generous, more giving because you have more to give. That's great. It's time for people who are heart-centered to have more power in this world, to share their voice, to build successful businesses, to have more money. Not because I think that, or precisely because I think that power is not inherently evil.
No.
It's everything has a shadow and a dark. When power is used to unify, to uplift, and to support the world and other people around you, it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing to have within you. It's light. Yeah, when power is used to dominate, control, and oppress others, it can be bad. This goes back to avoiding dogma. It's the dogmatic morality that something has to be one way or the other that destroys nuance and inhibits the individual from full expression and their highest being.
Yeah. And they fear that power, I think sometimes. I know that's like something that I see a lot. And I've felt and experienced, right? Like when you're given that power, there is that edge of, oh shit, what am I gonna do? Oh yeah, when you're in that state of power, how you decide to act and how you decide to show up and how you decide to lead, exactly like you said, just enhances who you already are. And what you're meant to do, I feel, so yeah.
I really, this to bring it back to classics, I'm very happy. I loved Spider-Man and superhero stuff. With great power comes great responsibility. And truthfully, like Marianne Williamson said, our greatest fear is not that we are weak and powerless. Our greatest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. Because if you are to recognize just how powerful you are as an individual, then the next step is like, okay, now take responsibility, take accountability, take action. When you recognize that you have power in your life, it is the invitation into you doing something about it. We have what is called a victim problem. Not that, oh my goodness, people who've been hurt and victimized are bad. That's ridiculous and not at all what I'm implying. But rather that we have a culture that, for better or worse, has celebrated the identity of being in pain, of using pain to justify mediocrity, of living in our excuses because we've been hurt. And we don't naturally celebrate enough, and maybe we're trying to be a shift or a cultural revolutionary, is we need to celebrate more the individuals who in light of all their pain, have chosen to transmute that pain into, love and courage, into art. For too long, the voices that were like, yeah, fuck, you're hurt, then fuck everybody, fuck the world, fuck you. And, maybe that's what our collective consciousness needed first, just to acknowledge, hey, we're hurt, great.
Yeah.
But the next step in the maturity of consciousness is like, great, I'm hurt now, what am I going to do about it? Now what? Now it falls on you. Everybody who complains about this kind of stuff, they say the same stuff, but it's so unfair. I'm not the one who abused. Why do I have to? I'm like, with all due respect, and I really do mean this, with all the love and respect, life is not fair. Like, get through that. Get through that truth right now. Life is not fair. It will never be fair. As long as you're a human being in a three-dimensional plane of existence, wherein you are at the whim of Mother Nature, wherein random acts can occur, wherein different biological materials develop in each of us. Life is not fair. Fairness is a myth. Fairness is not real. Once you get through that, then you can have a real conversation towards compassion, towards accountability, towards growth, maybe even towards equal opportunity for the world. There you go. Now we're having a real conversation. But these childlike conversations around fairness just keep people entrapped in a victim mentality wherein they get stuck within the mind in the pain. But the pain I've experienced was unfair. Yes, it was, 100%. And now it's your responsibility, okay?
Yes. No,
It's one thing to talk to children one way. Like, children all deserve, hey, that's awful. That's so terrible. Like, like real acknowledgement of their pain. We all deserve that. But every adult needs to take accountability for the way that the pain that they carry may be pouring out into the world around them.
Yeah, and that leadership, imagine people in leadership who have not taken accountability, right? There's, a lot. So you're correct. I think it's like, to bring it back to more people who are heart-centered and can take that radical self-accountability and show up and transmute it and alchemize it, then shows people, hey, when you step into your power and you step into your leadership and you step into your reverence and your truth and your sovereignty, guess what? When you're a leader, it's okay for you to take up space. I think even the way people create online and creating content and self-expression, right? Like, it comes with accountability because you're being seen, right? Social media is a mirror, just a mirror to how you see yourself and how people are showing you, right? So like, when you want to lead, when you want to be seen, when you want to present yourself, you have to take that accountability so you allow other people to do the same thing.
What's your opinion on this word leader? Like, what defines a leader, and is everyone meant to be a leader?
Ooh, I like that question. Good question. Geez, you said it's nice sometimes to have someone on here that thinks quicker than me. Um, what do I think of the word leader? I think to lead. No, I don't think everyone's meant to be a leader. I don't.
What would you tell them? What are they meant to be?
I don't think I'd tell them anything. I think like some people are either have the willingness to that and some people just don't. I think some people by default, unfortunately, don't know how to get out of their own way to go against the grain. Like, the image in my brain is like black sheep. I think true leaders are people who are able to just be themselves and go against the grain and make a difference in the world. I think if every single person was trying to make a difference in the world, then there'd be so many leaders and no one to actually help. I think but yeah, I don't think everyone's meant to lead. I really don't. I don't know. Maybe that's me
Well,
putting, yeah.
no, it's precisely a difficult question, because those of us who may feel that we're being called into leadership feel a positive relationship between leadership and self. We're like, yes, that's a good thing. So then to say maybe some people aren't meant to be leaders, we can't help but feel like, is that offensive? Am I talking down on other people? That's not a good leader's trait. And then the reason I ask it is, I don't think there's a pretty answer. What I do seem to know is that there's a lot of people who are born on Earth and would much rather be supporters of something they fuck with. They would
Yeah.
much rather be a part of something, a helper, community builder, but they don't necessarily always want to change the world. They're
Yeah.
not a visionary thinker. But that's, we just tend to celebrate the leader a lot, but I honestly think a leader is nothing without the, good quality people to support the
Yes.
movement, to
Thank you
create
for
it.
thank you for bringing that together. I didn't know how to say the things, but yeah,
It's it's,
no, I
it's
agree.
okay.
Yeah.
I ask it in part because I like answering it. Um,
I
and,
like
and because
these.
I've had this thought, because when I
Yeah.
was in my awakening journey, I thought everyone was going to be like me. We're all supposed to fucking, oh my God, like we're all cultural revolutionaries. But then I kept thinking, what the hell? We're going to have no cohesion. This is terrible. That'll be a terrible outcome for society.
Yes, it
It's
would.
absolute chaos, anarchy. We're going to have no shared values, no shared vision. And then I spoke to enough people in different areas and I realized, oh, I don't think everyone has that same thing inside of them that I do. A lot
Yeah.
of people have amazing hearts.
Yeah.
They're looking to be a part of something different, something that is true, something that's honest, something that's in integrity, which they know is not the old system. But they're not necessarily looking to like, oh, what, they have to be leaders? No, they'd like a role. They'd
Yeah.
like something meaningful. They'd like to be a part of it.
Yeah.
And often I think that's the consequence of the price you pay in being a leader is a lot of leaders won't often feel the same sense of belonging they create for others.
That hits home big time for me, and I get that because there is some slight loneliness sometimes that happens with that because you think like, am I going nuts? Am I the only one seeing what's happening? And how do I? And then you place almost like this invisible burden on your shoulders of I have to do it, and I think to lead doesn't mean you need to self-sacrifice and like put a weight on your shoulders that is invisible. And so, yeah.
The Christians say something wise, which I've really I appreciate in them. They say, give it to Jesus. Now, what they're really touching on, what I feel or sense anyways, is the wisdom that if you are to walk through the world, especially as a leader, part of your ego wants to take it on. You want to take on your own life. You want to take on the challenges. But when you realize it's not yours to take on, a true leader removes themselves so that they may be as clear of a channel for something greater than themselves.
Yeah.
The leader who does not have faith in something outside and larger than who they are as an individual becomes a tyrant. And time and time again, power without God is not good in my perspective.
Yeah.
So I try to give it to God. I try to remind myself, like, no matter what I'm doing, like, I give it to them. And the imagery I like to have when it comes to being a leader, or going first, which is leadership, is like we're moving around corners, so to speak, like a circle. Right? But there's like a big pillar in the center. There's crap, there's gunk, there's movement, and you're like a little bit around the corner. So you're like, oh, I see what's over here, but no one over there that you can see sees what's around the corner. So of course, they're still following you, but you kind of gotta show them. You lead by example. You use your words. You use your gifts to hopefully influence people to move in that direction, because in your heart of hearts, like, oh my God, there's more God here. There's more connection. There's more unity. There's more nuance, less dogma, more freedom here.
Yeah.
But as they move towards you, you've also moved, because you're leading. You're going first. Of course, you kind of feel a little lonely.
Yeah.
That's the cost of going first. You are there before they are. And I saw that visual metaphor during my journey with ayahuasca, and she was like, this like feminine entity the whole time, kind of talking my way as these visions were occurring, and she was doing this, like looking at me like, do you get it now? And I got, oh, and she goes, there it is, right there. It's okay. Because my whole shtick, my clench has been like, why don't people see what I see?
Yeah.
Why is everyone not where I want to? And she goes, whoa. You wanted to come into this reality as this person, someone who's ahead of the curve, whatever, take it, not ego, just matter of fact. You see things often before other people do, and you're a leader. Okay. She's going, okay. So learn to be fucking patient. You want to be over there, seeing what people can't yet see. And what, you're going to, idiots, dummies, you're going to talk to them condescendingly. Do you think that's going to make them want to walk over to you?
Mm-mm.
No. So part of being a leader is having the humility to be okay with being misunderstood, to be okay with the fact that some people are going, I don't see what you see, you're a fucking crazy person. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
And trust that if you're truly in integrity, you're really, walking your walk, the path will reveal itself to those who are meant to follow.
Yeah.
But you have to be okay with the fact that you're a little bit alone. You're often alone.
Yeah.
You're often literally head of the crowd going, come on, hey, over here, come on.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay. That's been a big burden off my shoulders. Because I'm like, oh, okay, this is part of my condition. That's okay.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love that though. Obviously need to hear that. So very divinely timed. But what keeps you rooted in your humility of self when you feel misunderstood?
My community. I think my real life, it's one thing to be misunderstood online where in some ways sometimes I make a video in a split second. Like I'm just like, yeah, there it is. And I'm like very playful with it. And maybe I didn't choose every word perfectly or I'm trying to be a little facetious because I like that or I have a sense of humor about something. And then I check like hours later, I'm like, oh, that person just did not understand the satirical tone in that. Wow, they're completely misrepresenting me and arguing a version of myself that I'm not. And maybe I'll engage for a moment or whatever, but then I'm like, you know what? It's okay. I walk through my life and I know that I genuinely am kind. Like I try to be kind. I'm good to the people in my life. I'm good to my friends. I'm good to my coworkers, to the people I interact with. My genuine presence and the feedback I receive is like, wow, thank you. Like you're a safe person, So I think in some ways the humility is like in my real day-to-day life, how am I actually showing up?
Yeah.
And maybe having a dog is like a really big point of connection and humility unto God. And it sounds a little funny, but you have a dog and you realize that from this moment onwards, or when you have a kid, I'm sure it's the same, if not more powerful. From this moment onwards, everything is really for fun. Like, yeah, I want to do these things. I want a career. I want to do speaking tours. I want to do bigger retreats. All that stuff is like in me. Sure, I love it. I want to act. I want to produce more media. I love all these things.
Mm-hmm.
But really, my responsibility is to make sure that this little guy gets his shit picked up, that he eats, that he has time to play with me, and that he has a good life. And when it's not about me anymore, life is so much better. Like, this is the paradox. If you make all your life about you satisfying your ego, it's kind of an empty life.
Oh gosh, it's frustrating. Oh my gosh, it's just not good. I came out of that a little while ago where I was feeling that frustration of how come I'm not getting what I want? And then eventually, right, when that ego dies for whatever reason, I had like a lot of life experiences that happened and checked myself and I went, no, actually, it's not about me. It's about something bigger than me. And if I'm truly here to help people, then why does it matter? Just allow everything to just take care of itself. So, yeah.
And there's a balance in all of this. And I'll say this just, for anyone watching or listening, it's like, all beauty and truth can be distorted to rationalize your behavior. Anyone on earth could listen to something like that and go like, yeah, and that's why I just don't make an effort to do anything. Like, because I'm just no longer trying to get anything. But maybe really what they're doing is they're avoiding the level of structure and discipline they might have to embody within themselves to live a more aligned life with the values that they know that they have.
Yeah.
There's many ways that we can use truth to run away from the higher calling of responsibility that our dream life truly is asking of us. And it's always going to be up to hopefully the individual, the community, the feedback you receive to know whether you're truly living in resonance to a kind of surrendered state into something greater, or whether you're using surrender to excuse your laziness. it's just tough because I get it. We all are like humans are we kind of want to chill. Like, we don't want to work hard.
Oh, I've used surrender as laziness many times. Oh my goodness. Just
We all do it. I do it.
I'm not gonna create any content today. I'm not gonna do anything for my business because I'm gonna surrender. I'm just gonna vibe. But that's just me getting in my own way, right? You have to become the person that you need to be to carry that responsibility to have the life that you want, So, yeah.
That's I love this thought experiment, which is like, think of this version of yourself who's in a midlife crisis. They're 50 years, however much older than you are today, 30 years older, 20 years older, and they are living a miserable existence. They lived in fear for the next 20, 30 years. They said no to everything that felt uncomfortable, and they're just very unhappy. They're alone. They feel like time has left them behind. And that version of you has just woken up in your body today. It's like, how would you treat the gift of being back at whatever age you're at right now, knowing like, holy shit, I get to do this again?
Mm.
What if this moment right now is your do-over and you have been given a second chance and this is your second chance, but you only get one? How might you approach every day with a little bit more intention, care, grace, devotion? I like that thought.
I like that too. I think more people need that. They do. They really do. We take it for granted. We take the day-to-day for granted. We get lost in complacency. We get lost in so many things, so.
The greatest gift that I think people who have dealt with suicide, ideation, or just real hopelessness is that they have actively chosen to live. Because anyone who has actively chosen to live in a way is living right now in their do-over. Because there was a moment where they thought, maybe not. Like truly, like, I'd like to end this. But in not ending it, this life right now is their second chance. And it's a gift. It's really a gift. And it's something that I can relate to. And to those who relate to it, And to those who don't, I pray that you don't have to. But that's the gift that choosing life consciously can give you, is just so much more reverence for the damn thing. Well, yeah, let's talk about this idea that I've been pondering.
Yeah.
It's this concept that content creation can be a form of spiritual initiation.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I might argue that there is a way to use creating content to make it one of the most potent forms of spiritual practices, shadow work.
Yeah.
And, firstly, when I say that, what comes to mind? Like, does that resonate? Do you feel like, yes, that's true?
Well, so that's what I ended up falling into teaching people by accident, accidentally on purpose. In fact, like the very first creative workshop I held was just a whim, it was just a thought. I was like, yeah, let me see what I can do, because people have always said, you're so creative, the way that you come up with your videos, how do you do it? And I had to stop and go, I don't know. I just do. I don't really think, I just do it. And I'm not focused on going viral. I'm not focused on who follows, who likes it. A little bit, obviously, I'm human. But when I hosted my first workshop, what I had people do is I said, I want you to write down. First, I had them get into their bodies. I had to do the sensuality thing, but I had them write down shadow aspects of themselves that they didn't like. I had to explain that to some people. Some people didn't understand that. And then I asked them to write down all the qualities of themselves that they do like. And then I said, well, I want you to find the similarity between the two. And all of a sudden, like, dots started clicking for them. And then I had them create. But when they created, I said, you can't look at your phone. You cannot go on Pinterest. You can't copy what anyone else is doing. I just want you to create from what you want. And to see all the edges in people of, oh my gosh, usually my shadow self feels guilty and taking up space and painting more vividly and being like this. And I feel like there's something wrong with me being in power and being loud. But then what they ended up creating was loud and vibrant and beautiful. So I had them use their shadow aspects of themselves to create. So I agree. I think the more you tap into that and integrate that, it's magic.
Yeah, I love what you did there, right? It's like the part of yourselves that we're rejecting the most is the wherever the fear lies is really where the greatest transformation is.
Yes. Yeah.
And most people who are wanting to make content, right, for many different reasons,
Mhm.
that in of itself, and haven't yet fully, it's like that in of itself speaks to the value of showing up, because it's just whenever you're resisting, there's something there for you.
Yes.
There really is, mind you, nuance. If you're, if you're like an addict and you're resisting doing drugs, that's good. Keep resisting. But, but for the sake of this conversation, the context we're in, it's like, yeah, the resistance to sharing your honest opinion online, there's something in that. Even if it's not about growing an audience, like you said, right? When we can kind of remove that, the metrics gauge, there is so much personal growth that will happen when you sit with the discomfort of being witnessed in your vulnerability, when you sit with the discomfort of feeling rejected by a mass audience after putting in hours of work into something and it not hitting. It's like, this is all good.
Yeah.
Those are the kind of psychological processes that humans need to go through if they're to expand into a space where they truly can be their wisest self, a version of themselves that can eventually handle a greater capacity to be seen, witnessed, and heard. Because if you right now can't handle the discomfort of being misunderstood by one person, and you think you're ready to grow online, it's like, you're not. You're not. You're going to be misunderstood by thousands, tens of thousands, millions.
Mm-hmm.
And building that internal structure through content can be so rewarding, and in turn will end up mirroring the growth. Like, I really believe that the more inner work I've done within myself around, what it means to have followers, what it means to get an audience, what it means to receive validation, all that, I've seen it directly reflect my actual growth online.
Yeah.
I worked with some coaches and I saw some patterns within myself around how much of my behavior was unconsciously seeking the validation of women.
Mm.
And when I began to work through that and practice in my own real life, like showing up more authentically within me, even being willing to be misunderstood by the women in my life, or being seen as whatever, I feared a toxic man, whatever, I grew like exponentially online, and I actually had better relationships with everyone. I was like, oh, it's like I'm creating the fear because I'm rejecting a part of myself, and in rejecting that part of myself, I'm not in my full expression. And when I'm not in full resonance, I'm not creating content that's landing, because in some spiritual plane, people intuitively know that's not totally real. That's a little performative.
Yes. People hello. People can feel your energy, right? When you're pushing energy out because you're like, see me, feel me, I want you to validate me. They pick up on it.
And let me just reiterate, right? Like, it's one thing to become conscious of that process once, or in our lives, or in one relationship, but we'll circle around the same things and wounds throughout our lives. That's the spiral dynamic of change, is that we keep touching the same wounds over and over again, but we spiral around those wounds, growing wiser and larger and broadening our perspective. But it's also natural to fall back into an old cycle. And when it's not about becoming a perfect version of ourselves that doesn't have that same wound or desire for validation, but building an internal structure that when you see that desire, it's met with like, total acceptance, love, understanding, and compassion. And weirdly enough, as the paradox that all of this is, in meeting that part of us that once caused us so much tension or shame, or that showed up unconsciously because we denied it, and fully seeing it and loving it just doesn't really impact us the same way it used to.
Yeah.
Which is funny. Yeah. It's almost like it's more about how you do something, not what you do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's detachment a little bit, right? Not people confuse detachment and apathy, but it's true detachment where you're going, you know what? It's not, exactly like that. You said it so beautifully. I don't want to take that away, but no, I would love to know how did that thought come up with like expression and creating content online, and like, did someone come to you? Did someone like, were you just standing there going, man, I'm frustrated?
No, you know what it was is I just had a friend, and we were just chatting, and she said, it's so funny. I can be so vulnerable in person, or I'm so good at this and coaching other people, but I just find like when I turn on the camera, it's just like really uncomfortable. And I was like, honestly, if anything, I feel the opposite way. When I turn on the camera, it's very easy for me to be vulnerable. I think in part, and I just started riffing,
Yeah.
and I started like, touching. I was like, I think because like I've just done it for so long that and in the beginning, I thought I had to like sound smart or get something out of it. But the more I did it, I realized that I was growing, that it was like actually helping my personal development. So I started to think of it as like, this is my own personal healing process. And talking around the shame I held from, my past mistakes, and talking about my past issues with addiction, with substances, my internal realizations around myself and my trauma, I used it as like this platform for shame alchemy, for transmutation of things that bound me so tightly. I started to notice that I was like genuinely growing in my whole life, to the point where I could now, I'm hosting events for, 80 people and doing stand-up comedy where I'm talking about like my queerness, my queer identity, something that maybe in the past I would have felt so much shame, and now I'm making jokes about butt sex. Like, that's hilarious. Like the difference in where my consciousness is, all because I guess had the willingness initially to approach content as a space for, well, shame alchemy, for transmutation, as a direct spiritual initiatory process to dissolve the rigid identities that I was bound to. Because that's all, like, people think about. This is a good point. What is a spiritual practice? Well, hopefully, in my humble opinion and the perspective of, the spiritual mystics, any practice that helps you dissolve your attachment to your rigid identity. Well, then I might argue that there is a way to make content wherein you are dissolving your attachment to the rigid identity of who you thought you had to be.
Yeah.
You think you had to be a good girl? Go online and be a bad girl. You think you have to be nice? Go online and share that opinion you don't think is very nice.
Yeah.
Look how quickly your attachments to self dissolve when you give yourself permission to be in full expression. Oof, oof. Now that's spiritual initiation.
That's perfect. I don't even want to touch with you. That's so good. Yeah. That's so true. It's so funny. I made a video on being the villain because but in real life, I was being a villain. And so I had to come to terms with, I can't always be nice to people. I can't always accept behavior that I wouldn't normally accept. So then why am I doing it online? And so then this shift happened, and I just started being a little bit more unhinged. And I always noticed in the past as well, to your point, that like anytime I was just a little bit more outspoken and sassy, it wasn't what I was saying. It was the energy. It's like the energy of freedom and of expansiveness translated as a mirror online. People felt it and they went, yeah, yes. But then I always know now of like when I'm performing versus when I'm being present. So I check myself. I go, even when I record, the same thing. Like I have to sit down, I talk a little bit, just get everything else out. And then when I just start free flowing, and because much of what I say are downloads, like it's not always me, right? Yeah. And I just trust whatever is flowing, and then I go, no, that's it. That's it. It's a wrap. We're done. I'm not gonna mess with it and let it land. So yeah.
And that permission you're giving to yourself, right, is an expression of love, which is ultimately an expression of the divine.
Yeah.
I love the concept of the villain thing. I used to not understand that because I was so wrapped up in my good boy identity.
Yeah.
But it really is. There's a lot of wisdom in that. I'm happy that you've been sharing that kind of. And I'm curious, like when you say villain, what do you mean precisely?
So I always had this idea in my head that a villain is someone people should fear, right? And they're a bad person, someone that does malicious things. But when I stopped, I was like, am I ever actually doing anything maliciously to hurt anyone, or am I actually just hiding my own truth, my own opinions, and my own boundaries? And so I found that I had like this overlapping identity and thought of what a villain was, when really I was like, if being a villain means I'm not going to play the good girl, I'm not going to follow the rules, then that's what I'm going to do. I'm like, okay, let's do it. Yeah, so.
I love that.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's just, yeah. We all need to be more villains. And it's funny. It's like with the Epstein files dropping, I'm like, honey, like, you're not a real villain. Like, girl, you have an uncomfortable opinion. Go online and be a villain, okay? The real villains are fucking villains, all right? They're evil. You can afford to be imperfect, all right? You are not the real evil.
No.
You know, like, I almost, in a way, I hope that the one positive we can take from the insanity that is the real shadow of the world being revealed is, girl, you ain't, like, your shadow is not the thing to be worried about, okay? Living an unexpressed and small life because you think your shadow is so terrible, that's the issue, okay? Because I want you to have more power because we need more people in power who are not pedos and satanic crazy people.
Yes.
Bye to the people watching. Yeah, my name is Esteban Niño Palacio. I work as a behavioral coach. I host wellness retreats around the world. Portugal, Costa Rica is the next one, hopefully Mexico. I'm passionate about this work. I love being able to be a facilitator because selfishly I love seeing it. I love like witnessing somebody recognize how powerful they are. And I hope that in your own life, just through small decisions every day, whether that's just to recognize that those frames of mind that you have are choices. You can choose to see every challenge as an affirmation that life sucks and is so hard, or as an opportunity to, sharpen your sword and expand as a person. At the end of the day, those internal frames that you choose are what will determine the quality of your life. So start choosing.
I encourage you to follow, like, subscribe, and rate this so that it pushes it out to whoever else might need it. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you ever want to chat more about anything that this podcast is about, you know where to find me. I'm on Instagram, Twitter, and good old TikTok. And be sure to stay tuned for my Tea Time with Sabby episodes.